All right. I believe we're on the air. How we doing, folks? We're riding horses with American flags. Isn't that nice? What do you know? And it's a Hal raid. Hal Sparks raids. Hold on. Hey, everybody. Funny thing, I seem to have lost my sound, but you can hear me okay, so that's a good start. Maybe we'll take these out. It's just to air speakers. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? That's really annoying when the earbuds, decide to ditch me. I also, of course, was in the middle of eating a pretzel, so that didn't help either. But welcome to the show. I am your dutiful host, Cliff Schechter. You are here. It's Cliff's Edge is the YouTube channel. And we're doing the stream for today. Lots going on. Today I may have to end a little bit early because as some of you know the deal. If you are fans of, if you're fans of soccer in general, but if you're fans of the European Premier League, the great Arsenal soccer team, soccer club, football club, if you will, is in something called the Champions League semifinal. And if they beat the team from Paris, that would be Paris Saint-Germain, then they get to go to the finals against Inter Milan. And that, my friends, would be lots of fun. I'm a big Arsenal fan from when I lived over in England. So that's part of what's going on. The big story, of course, is a political one. I decided once Scott Jennings started talking about how great America was and tried to attack his fellow panelists on CNN, the irony of this guy who spent years destroying everything that was good about America, literally undermining every institution, destroying it, because a lot of people just know him as this jackass on CNN who looks like he was born in khakis and, yacht slippers. He had a whole history before. And we'll talk about that and how it's ludicrous why CNN would employ somebody like him at this point. And, of course, why corporate media sucks. And you should support independent media because they're not trustworthy. They never will. Ooh, my cousin's husband used to play for Arsenal. Look at that. We got a Barcelona fan in there. Sorry about that, Barcelona fan. I think to be somewhat of a fan too, but they lost to Milan, so it's tough. I got people coming here on soccer stuff. I got people coming here, so I did start off with that. That's on me. But people like Lefty Graham saying that Scott Jennings is a pinhead. I'd say that's a nice way of putting it. I'd say he's a destructive scumbag. Again, he's a fascist in khakis, is what he is. Jonathan Black is here. Hey, Cliff, Hal sent us. Hal is awesome that way. And for you sparklers, by the way, you should know that tomorrow, when I do my exclusive Substack show, Amped Up with Cliff Schechter, at this exact time, 2 p.m. Eastern, but we're only on Substack because it's a Substack show. They gave it to me because somebody over there's drunk. Hal will be joining us. So we will have the great Hal Sparks on Substack tomorrow for our conversation, me and David Schuster. So you should definitely come join us. It'll be fun. In any case, where was I? Talking about Jennings. But a few other things first. Did you guys know today is the last day for you to get your real ID so that you're allowed to travel to foreign countries, which I'm just saying may be something you want to do because you may feel a need to travel to a foreign country at some point and maybe get a one-way ticket, depending on how things go. Here, Chris Doug, liking the Substack. Yes, subscribe. I am blueamp.com. I think it's my little title underneath me. And you can go subscribe there. And if you want the extra stuff, like the column I'm working on today, $1.50 a day is all it costs. Can't make a much better deal than that. Lefty Gramps will tell you he digs it. Um, Lefty Gramps, and getting one passport works. Yes, passport does work. Just saying, you don't have that, you may want real ID. What I think is really going to come out of that is we're going to see some awesome fights in airports over the next week or two from all of the MAGA Karens and Carls out there. Who is Carl the male version of Karen? I'm saying it is, where really annoying people who think that the whole world should cater to them and can't wait 2 seconds, start screaming and yelling at people because they think they have a real ID, but they don't. Just another way that certain MAGA folks can have their lives screwed by Donald Trump. Oops, what are you going to do? Yeah, Chris Doug, don't leave the country. You may not get back or end up in El Salvador. Well, some would argue, depending on what country you go to, not ending up back here ain't the worst thing. I talked about after I came back spending, around the end of the year, Christmas break in a place that I lived a while ago because I'm not young, known as Nice, France. And I would live in Nice in a second. If they wanted to let me go there and not let me come back here, I'd be good with that. I'd be pretty good with that. Diversity, great food, great wine, great weather. A country that believes that everyone should have health care, right? The best health care in the world, actually, they're ranked. Crazy stuff like family leave. Hey, you just had a baby. You probably should have some time off from work. Crazy shit like that. Look at that. William Knight coming with the knowledge. Did you know every time a pope passes away, an English Premier League team wins the Champions League? I did not know that. And now don't get me too excited because if we need that to hold up. We need that to hold up. Sorry about the pretzels. I was writing this Substack thing and it was really busy. I will try to not eat many of them because I know that's annoying. But beyond real ID, what else do we have going on? It's funny, I was joking about my age. If you guys are familiar with Kroger, I know some of my Ohio folks are. Well, it's in a lot of places, and they own the biggest supermarket chain in the world, but they do own they own Albertsons and others. I don't know if they're doing this there, but in Kroger, which is here, they are giving people, it was like a $5 coupon, $10 coupon, 10% off. I don't know what the hell it is. If you go in and you prove you're over the age of 55, they're calling it a seniors thing. We're calling over 55 seniors at this point. I'm not that far away from that. That upset me. I'm good with my age, but come on. Don't start calling me a senior until I hit like 65. Just saying. What's cool is on air sometimes when plans for who's picking up certain kids change. But I'm going to make sure my wife knows the deal. I am on air. Let me know who to grab. Sorry about that, guys, but when to pick up the kids is kind of important. So I don't know. We're going to find out if I have to leave a little bit early. Stephanie with the damn I'm old LOL. Yeah, right? I mean, come on. 55? Right? No. Look, I still have like almost all my hair, and it's mostly not gray. I can still actually sprint. I can't be a senior. Get the hell out of here with that crap. I don't want my discount at Kroger, and I'm not going to bring my ID to show them. Well, I'm not. I've got 2 years to go, so I'm actually not 55 and wouldn't be able to get it anyhow. But I can't believe we're calling 55 seniors. I just heard that, and I was like, "What the hell, man?" 65, I thought was a senior, right? You retire, you're a senior citizen. I don't know. I always qualify for the senior discount, but never ask for it. Lefty Gramps, you should do that. You absolutely should do that. Come on, it's money. I'd probably use the ID and let them let me have savings if I were at that rate. I just was a little bit taken aback that 55 now makes you a senior. Somebody mentioned something about Social Security in there, and I was like, um, it's like, we're calling people that are younger and younger seniors while we're actually taking away benefits until you're older and older. What's that senior gap going to be called? I guess a senior gap, maybe. Chris Doug, I'm 58, but the current administration makes me feel like I'm 102. That I get. Sleep's not as good. It's the disgust factor of just shaking your head at everything that we now see every day. Now, granted, some great things have happened lately. I don't know if you guys are all a fan of Joyce Vance. Goes on MSNBC a lot. She's going to actually be on my YouTube, my Substack show on, I think it's May 22nd. So in 2 weeks, that'll be a lot of fun. But she wrote a post talking about the positive things that were going on. They finally secured that at Substack, I read it. They finally secured that North Carolina Supreme Court race that the challenger would not concede and kept trying to get votes kicked out after the fact that were legal. Again, I love when this happens. Even a Trump appointee said, this is ridiculous. You've tried now twice to recount votes. You've tried to kick out that, whatever. The Democrat won. And so it turns out they were not able to steal a seat, at least it looks like it, in North Carolina. That tells me that while, don't get me wrong, the challenges are many, and that's kind of what today's thing was about, which is that, America is, to hear Scott Jennings sit there and say, America's the greatest nation in the world. And it's like, no, it's not. And we were once. I'll tell you why. I'll get into more details about that. But we're not, because of people like you. Because people like you have spent 40 years, particularly the last 10, but really 40 years, undermining everything that made us the greatest nation in the world. And again, it's not to say we didn't have lots of problems, but in terms of the trajectory we were on, in terms of what we were, passing civil rights and voting rights and all that kind of stuff, and economic fairness and all the things that we were doing, building big things, right? That we used to do, starting with FDR's time, Hoover Dam and Tennessee Valley Authority, and all these things that we did, because it was that's what makes a country great. It's all the people in it who are thriving. It's not a couple of weirdo incel billionaire assholes sitting on rocket ships that might blow up because they suck and making weird, stupid looking cars. Yay, we have the richest fucking weirdo in the world in our country who made his money because he got emeralds from apartheid South Africa. That makes us great. And there's still, even with Obamacare, I think, improving things vastly, because the Republicans attacked the individual mandate and they attacked the subsidies and many other ways. We still have something like 6 or 7% of people that are uninsured. No, a great country would have 100% of people insured, and would put that ahead of the fucking weirdo billionaire, the one that chains people in and makes them work all night and sexually harasses the SpaceX employees and everything else that loser does. That's what makes a country great, not having a couple of rich assholes at the top who lord it over everybody else, while, as somebody mentioned in there, nobody can retire anymore. We're saying in there at the age of 65. Yeah, so people have to retire later and later. Oh, and this jackass calls Social Security a Ponzi scheme. We're shutting down local Social Security offices. I mean, it just is such a disconnect to me. And it's one of the things that always, I'm a liberal. I care about people as individuals. And so people being hurt has always been one big part of why I've hated many aspects, if not most, of the Republican Party. But the other one is because it always, to me, also felt like an attack on my country and everything that we stand for. The whole point of this country was to get to a point where we took in immigrants and, from other places. We wanted to give people equal opportunity when we could. At times, I know this, people, it's hard to believe now, but if you look at the mid 20th century, in a lot of our social movements and other things, we were ahead of a lot of countries, like in Europe, Canada, places like that. It all gone backwards. We were spending more on education. So we were producing like the greatest scientists and the inventions we were and everything else. Like we were that's how we were getting to the moon first, not Katy Perry riding on a damn private rocket or or anything like that. No, something that was for all of us, not for an individual person who happened to be rich. And that's like the whole breakdown. So when Scott Jennings sits there and makes that argument, I swear to God, it pisses me off. I'm not sure what I want to go through first. Why he's full of crap and we're not that great anymore, or his role in getting us there. But you know what? I could tell you why we're not that great anymore, but I'm going to bet that a lot of you all this is now just exaggerated under Trump. I bet a lot of you saw probably one of the better monologues, more amazing ones ever on TV on the show, The Newsroom, right? With Jeff Daniels, who's a news guy. And, somebody's like, why is America the greatest? He starts off on a panel. Why is America the greatest country on earth? And, one person gives one answer on the left, and then some right winger says some stupid shit. And he's just like, we're not. See, there's MJ with, you could just play the clip from from Newsroom. Yes, you are psychic, because it's exactly what I was thinking. And I could play it. I thought I might just read it, because to me, even just reading it, there's just an impact. Hold on a second. In what Will, the character, has to say. Okay, so why are we the greatest country in the world? I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs from it, right? There's absolutely no evidence to support the statement we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality. God, that's awful. 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Probably not anymore after Donald Trump, but that's the thing, is that this, even at its time, made a strong point, and Trump has made all of this worse, and they've tried to finish off all of this work, because all of this started with Reagan, the belief in sort of this radical individualism over us as a common good, the social contract, that by making all of us better, we made our country better. But I'll continue with this part. We sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed and struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were. We never beat our chest. We built great things and made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. Reached for the stars. We acted like men. There's a little bit of that Sorkin sexism in here. I'll warn you. Yes, probably could have said we acted like men and women. We aspired, or whatever. Maybe not even mention that in light of the fact that we're much more open to the definitions of that having changed. But okay, we aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for the last election, which I actually think is an important point. I'd love to have a country where the differences were such as that they were, 75 years ago or so, where Dwight Eisenhower could have run as a Democrat or a Republican, because there wasn't a huge amount of difference. And we didn't scare so easily. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because people were informed. Yeah, that's corporate media's role in the destruction of people being informed by great men and women who were revered. The first step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. There you go. And it's not, by definition. Like, again, I'm glad that you put that in the speech, but I would go, having lived in both England and France, I'd go to Europe and I'd sort of see some of the, use the healthcare system, use the education system, and just be like, look at where we're ranked in these things. Look at where we're ranked in poverty compared to the rest of the world. Look at where we're ranked in, like, environmental protection, education. I mean, they under the guise of we must cut spending. That's why what he said there was so important about the defense budget. Don't ever cut that, even under Donald Trump, when a few of his people, like Steve Bannon and whatever, I'm not going to give Steve Bannon any credit for anything, but he even wanted to cut some of that because there are a few of them that really do want to cut everything. That's one of the few places, the only place I could see in life, certainly not showering habits, let's say, that I could agree with Steve Bannon. We spend a ridiculous amount, and it is a military industrial complex. And what Isaiah warned us about, it's because of lobbyists embedded in our system, and former defense secretaries are really often like, people end up going and working at defense companies and go back and lobby their buddies. It's awful. And now I had another famous, giving Ike a lot of credit today, a Republican, again, at a time when there were some good ones. When I think he said every missile and every bomb built is a tragedy because it's another child left unfed or something like that. Imagine a Republican saying that today. I mean, sure, a Democrat would say that today. Well, yes, some would, but there were, some wouldn't. And I mean, that's the tragedy of all of this is they started pretending they cared about the budget, which we know they don't at all. Because every time they come into office, I brought this fact up the other day. Every time they come into office, they destroy the budget. They blow up huge deficits. Reagan, George H.W. Bush, the only one of the four I'm going to mention who even tried to do the right thing, where he did raise taxes with a 1990 bill that tried to at least address the budget a little bit, but he still increased our deficits. And then Bill Clinton came in and cleaned it up and started making sure that we were running a surplus. And then, of course, George W. Bush came in and had to give all his rich friends a tax cut and go to war in Iraq all at the same time. Nope, we'd never done that in the history of this country before. Gone to war and cut taxes. That's the reason. Hey, let's talk about Ike again, or FDR. That's the reason we raised the top tax rate. I think first under FDR to almost 90%, 91% under Ike, because we were at war first in World War II and then Korea. There were things to pay for, things to build, a country to protect, infrastructure. And I mentioned a lot of this, my Substack about this, so I will have to encourage you all to go read it. It will be released this afternoon. Today is a column, and it's all about this. What we used to do, the big things we used to do versus what we won't even do now. And it's sort of it's like going through a passage in time, a time capsule as to how different our culture was. That people found it obscene when a CEO was even making 15 times, I think, to 20 times of what their workers were making. You're supposed to only make like 10 times what your workers were making. George Romney, Mitt Romney's dad, refused when he was at the time American Car Company or whatever it was called. The name, I think is it what became General Motors? Maybe somebody can help me out with that. But he was the CEO of one of the big ones, and he refused to take a pay increase because he said it should go to the workers from the Romney family. The culture was different. Like, we believed in that social contract. We believed there should be great and clean public parks, that we should expand the land people could go on. Now they just had to have a court. That was one of the other things that Joyce Vance talked about that was blocked. Trump was trying to cut all of these jobs from national parks in the form of, he didn't want any of them to monitor any of the environmental conditions, because of course then corporations just pollute them all they wanted to. And there was such an outcry from people in administration. I don't know if a judge issued something that they backed off, at least for now, to keep your eye on them. But like these great big things, because again, that is what makes a country great. A country is great. It's defined by all of us, not a couple of rich assholes, not a couple of gaudy losers like Donald Trump with piss cotton candy for hair. It's defined by all of us. If people are rising up in the ranks, if immigrants are coming in and starting businesses and working and making a better life for the generation after them, what it says on the Statue of Liberty, which we don't stand for anymore, if people are going and starting their own businesses, which I've been lucky enough to do. And if you're lucky, it goes well and you can afford to do something you love and treat your family well, or you go and you work at a company for a long time, or a nonprofit because you're passionate about something, you go teach and we take care of you because we don't keep cutting teachers' salaries so that people like Elon Musk can accrue their next $1 billion. I mean, he won't, because he's a complete dickwit who decided to bite the hand that fed him, and so Tesla is going to crash and burn. If you know anything about branding, the name, while Musk is there and while it has the name Tesla, it will never work again. Just go ask Philip Morris and Enron how that works out. But I digress. Like that, if you when you're talking about an entire country, and if you really have pride in the United States, this is why when they brick the flag up? Would you cut money from the Veterans Administration? Would you even look veterans in the eye? I had Fred Wellman, great guy, who's doing this a lot. Veteran, he was at one point. He was the guy who was brought in, by the way, to clean up the Lincoln Project. And I won't get into all that, but left because maybe there was more challenges there, and did his own thing. And he was talking all about it, and we were talking about they're trying to cut in your face. They can't even defend it. I put up a video recently with Melanie Stansberry, representative from New Mexico, just kicked the crap out of Comer, who's a complete clown who wouldn't shut up, and so did Representative Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts, so both Democrats. And it was all about they're cutting $4 billion from veterans, from the VA, and the whole response to this was just, but Comer was like, oh, $4 billion, like it wasn't a big deal. It is to people that like volunteered to serve this country and went and had their minds or their bodies disabled, destroyed, and like our promise to them is that we'll take care of them. That's part of being a great country. You're taking care of the people that have fought for your freedom, that have protected your country, particularly when you lied them into a war in Iraq and when you fought the other one in Afghanistan like a couple of fucking drunks, when you could have sent in special forces and Navy SEALs and what have you for 6 months. And found bin Laden, found the guys that were harboring him, gotten them the hell out of there to try them back here, and then maybe hurt the infrastructure of Taliban enough so at least some of the other groups would have a chance. But it wasn't our war to fight. It ended up being the longest war in U.S. history, and I supported that war, and I still do. In that we absolutely should have responded to bin Laden in that way. To me, you avoid war at all costs, except for when you have to. But we could have gone in and done Afghanistan in 6 to 9 months, maybe a year, gotten the hell out and gotten the people we need to get, and sort of, really taken apart the infrastructure of the Taliban so others would have a chance at rule there. And then it's up to them to make their own future. I mean, if there are mass genocide, yes, I still believe we send in as a multinational force to protect civilians. But you don't get in the middle of the civil war. You do your best to try to help, to try to kind of undermine the side that's evil, help the other side somewhat. It's what we're doing in Ukraine right now. Even though, I almost said George W. Bush. It's funny. I was thinking about Iraq and Afghanistan, even though Trump has done his best to try to undermine that because he's been a Russian asset for 40 years, per Craig Unger and Greg Olear and others who've written intelligently on this. That's what makes a great country. Not blowing places up, not creating rich people, not creating people with such obscene wealth they don't know what to spend it on. That's obscene in itself. I had a great piece written by someone named Marie Riverton. She writes often for Tony Michaels, and some of you are Tony Michaels fans. Wrote a piece on the hollowing out of rural America. Rural America was, more people moved to cities as time went on in suburbs, but rural America, small towns, was once the heartbeat of America. And it once wasn't radicalized in the way it is now by talk radio and all this disinformation garbage. It was a place where a lot of folks actually had normal views. I can prove it to you because George McGovern got elected in South Dakota. Okay. And, what was his name? Somebody help me. Starts with an M. The minority leader of the Democrats, who was from Montana. And we had Frank Church, I believe, who was from Idaho. They hadn't radicalized the entire rural population. And some of the reason that they were radicalized is because they lost, and these were Republican policies. And yes, Democrats joined them on some of them. Bill Clinton on some of the neoliberal policies, Barack Obama. I'm not going to try to pretend Democrats didn't fuck up along the way. But the charge was led by Republicans. And they hollowed out these towns and sold them down, basically chopped them down for parts, which is what they want to do to all of America now. And so you have folks living in rural towns who now can't get a job anywhere except for as a Walmart greeter. And the Walmart shows up like a bunch of locusts, and all the local stores disappear, and Dollar General and Dollar Tree and Dollar this and Dollar that, so that nobody can find a good job or do anything. There's a brain drain where most of the younger generation leaves. It didn't have to be that way. Could have, done what Joe Biden was trying to do and others trying to do. We could have built broadband there, brought back with the CHIPS Act, manufacturing in some of these places, not to the level it once was, because there'll be automation and there's competition or whatever, but at least some of it, bring, instead of cutting what they're doing right now, AmeriCorps and Job Corps and all of these things, which help folks disproportionately in those areas. Also, I think some urban areas too, but in rural areas, we would be bolstering those programs. So at home, they could do things to clean up the environment, to help make their communities safer and better, and be paid for it. And I mean, I guess I don't think it's actually paid, but get money for college for it. I mean, those things, Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, USAID, NATO, multinational sort of coalitions that protect and keep the world safe, multinational, partnerships that help do things like when there's a genocide in Bosnia, in the 90s, we go in as a multinational force and prevent it. We failed in a number of other places to do that and have since. That's what makes you great. Helping humans reach their highest potential, making sure everyone, nobody falls below a certain line, making sure people are taken care of. But, it doesn't mean like a full-on socialist country. And I've always said to you, I'm not a full-on socialist. I own my own businesses. But there are socialistic aspects to our country. I'm a social democrat is what I'd call myself. We do have a fire department that is socialist. We do have a police department that is socialist. Social Security is socialist. Those are all good programs. I'd make healthcare pretty close to that too, although I might give some private options to compete if they want to be out there. I absolutely would socialize all of our transportation, because our airlines and our trains and whatever should be public utilities for all of us to use. It seems that we can't properly make money on them, and it would be so much easier. Now, you want a few private companies to be able to compete yet again? Fine. Prove you can compete. It helps if you stop paying a CEO like $100 million a year. That's money that could go to something. If you stop wasting other people's money on paperwork and stupid shit that doesn't need to be done, that's what would happen if you created sort of government entities, at the very least, like public options to compete. We could do all that. We could do it in a more market-friendly way. If the way the old Republican Party believed, that tried to solve problems but used markets more, and that would be the public option way and all of that, and allow there to be private guys to compete. But if they don't compete, they're screwed. Or in a more democratic way, which is government provided. But whatever it is, just because it's not making a profit doesn't mean you get rid of it. Like, it'd be nice, folks, living here in Cincinnati, if I've got people who I love to, who I do some work with and what have you, who are up in Cleveland, which, just for your information, is about 3 to 3.5 hours. I break some speed limits along the way. Hopefully no highway troopers are watching. So I do it a little quicker, but 3 to 3.5 hours. Do you know what it'd be like? I can tell you what it'd be like, because I grew up on the East Coast, to get on a freaking train, a bullet train, and close my eyes, sleep for half the time, do work half the time on a nice non-bumpy ride and get there. I mean, I was just in France on the TGV over, which is their train. I mean, you cruise down from like Paris to Nice in what, 2 hours, whatever. I mean, I don't remember, 3 hours, whatever it was a hell of a lot shorter than it would be. And, look, our trains don't even go as quickly, but as somebody who grew up on the Acela line, grew up in New York City, went to college in Philly, lived in Washington, D.C., at one point lived on a campaign in Portland, Maine. I think I lived in most major East Coast cities outside of, let's say, Boston, where I had a lot of friends and would go visit. It was so easy to just get on that train and go there. It's an economic development tool. Not having those kinds of things, LA to San Francisco, Houston to Dallas, it just makes sense. You'd also clean the environment. And if you don't worry about the profit and realize it's for the public good, because that's what we used to do. We built stuff. China's doing all of that now. Western Europe is doing all of that. We don't do that anymore. That's because all of our taxes have to be the least, because billionaires, supply side economics, we have to give them the opportunity to have more money to stash away in foreign banks and foreign assets, and buy yachts they keep abroad and stuff like that, things they'll never pay taxes on and whatever, so that we'll never see any of that money. That's why we need to cut spending, which is to get back to Scott Jennings, who is honestly one of the most evil people on the scene, and nobody's ever tried to get him fired that I know of very much from CNN. But understand that Scott Jennings was from Kentucky, was Mitch McConnell's original lieutenant. There's no analysis you can do of um, of what's happened to the United States without Mitch McConnell at the very center of it. I think Newt Gingrich was sort of Donald Trump 1.0, the same kind of like camera loving buffoon, doofus, liar, cheat, all of that. Mitch McConnell is a different beast. What's driven him? It take a phalanx of psychiatrists to figure out, but he just wanted power, and he wanted he got the corporate guys behind him and fought every step of the way. People don't know who weren't there because I was on a bunch of these kinds of things trying to fight against the man, and Scott Jennings was right there as his lieutenant when he filed amicus briefs to overturn McCain-Feingold when we actually had some campaign finance reform pre-Citizens United. He got that case in front of a court he created. So not only did he keep pushing those things and keep pushing, there was also another one. I'm trying to remember the name of that case where there was an aggregate limit of 125,000, I believe it was back, this is about 10 years ago and probably would have grown with inflation. But do you think it's, if I give to a number of different politicians, do you think it's sort of a strain on my rights as an American? If you say to me, you can't give any more than 125,000, do you think that's really limiting me? Or is that just, something where we want rich people to be able to give more? So McCutcheon, I think that was the name of the case. He an amicus brief on that. He fought tooth and nail to destroy our campaign finance system. He fought tooth and nail to block Obama judges, Biden judges, and we were too nice and too cautious and didn't fight back. He stole a Supreme Court justice from Obama, and he also stole one because the one that came up while we were voting that ended up becoming Amy Coney Barrett was ours too. We were already voting in the process. We literally were in the situation he claimed we were in with Scalia, even though Scalia died in February of that year. We had plenty of time to pick a justice before the campaign started in earnest. And he'd done that on all sorts of other courts too, but our guys just kept sitting around like Dick Durbin, like, hey, what do you, he's the good Mr. McConnell, our friend. No, he's evil. And Scott Jennings was there pushing all of it. And then he went on to George W. Bush. You know what he did there? You remember when they purged? A lot of this was, like a trial run for what would become much worse under Trump. When they started purging U.S. attorneys that had Democratic affiliations and didn't prosecute the folks they wanted. Remember that? Yeah, Scott Jennings led that. There's a time where he maybe could have gone to prison for that, but I don't know what occurred. They weren't able to bring a case against him. So now we've got a guy who's next to Mitch McConnell who's destroyed our limits on money and politics, destroyed our judicial system, certainly greatly hampered it by being a part of blocking Democratic judges and appointing the worst right-wingers and doing whatever it took to get it done as McConnell's little bitch, and then goes and works for George W. Bush and sticks with what he knows, which is screwing up our legal system by purging good prosecutors and putting their prosecutors in place whose whole plan was to prosecute Democrats for no reason other than, hey, you're somebody that maybe someone who could run for the Senate or governor or something like that, and you may be a challenge to us in an election. So we're going to dirty you up, even if we have nothing, and you'll probably get, in the end, be let off, but we'll get all the headlines, and then we'll use them in ads. That was like an old Karl Rove trick. Scott Jennings there for that. And the final part of the equation before going to CNN and becoming the dickhead he is there is is what he did with January 6th. Let me read you that too, because he wrote a hell of a piece after January 6th, before doing an about face, whoring out and becoming the loser he is and doing anything for power. I think he wants to run for McConnell's seat, by the way. I don't think Andy Bashir, who I think would have a great shot at that, is going to run because I think he's going to run for president. But here you go, Scott Jennings. I mean, this leaves a little in the imagination. And remember, this is where a lot of Republicans were that day, back on January 6, 2021, before they were given talking points. And Kevin McCarthy went down and resuscitated Trump, and they all decided they would retcon the entire day, which he's leading them to the obscene situation of where they're giving $30 million to Ashley Babbitt's family, which makes me want to fucking hurl. Talk about taxation without representation. They are stealing my money to give to a traitor and to give to a terrorist. She got killed because she played the terrorist game and tried to break into our Capitol. Here's the title from Scott Jennings. And I don't know why every one of these CNN panelists doesn't throw this in his face every time. I'm assuming they won't let them or they'll kick them off, because why would you take anything Scott Jennings says seriously after this? Trump caused this insurrection and every Republican must condemn it. Opinion by Scott Jennings. Editor's note: Scott Jennings, the CNN contributor, Republican campaign advisor, is a former special assistant to President George W. Bush, where he purged attorneys, my ed note, and a former campaign advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell, where he helped destroy our campaign finance system and our judicial system, and also pushed for filibusters that ended up destroying all comity in the Senate. Right. All right, let's go with what Scott had to say. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. We don't want to puke. This is literally an insurrection. The fact that the U.S. military hasn't secured the seat of our government already is a failure of leadership by the commander-in-chief. Remember, Scott Jennings is writing this. President Donald Trump caused this insurrection with his lies and conspiracy theories about the election process being rigged against him. It was not stolen, but this madness was fomented by the president and his top advisors over the past several months. His attorney, Rudy Giuliani, at a rally on Wednesday, was that the one at the Four Seasons Landscaping, called for trial by combat to a roaring crowd. Remember that? Let me be clear. These rioters are not Republicans. Yes, they are. These are not conservatives. Yes, they are. These are not patriots bursting to the U.S. Capitol. Right about that. Accosting police officers and destroying public property. These are domestic terrorists. Again, yes, and I'm going to blame Democrats for this. That label should have been attached to them, and it should have been a talking point repeated constantly. And if Merrick Garland did his fucking job, even if he couldn't prosecute these folks because John Roberts kept pushing back the schedule and eventually gave Trump immunity and all this or whatever, there's nothing stopping Merrick Garland from holding a press conference every week to tell people the number of domestic terrorist leads they have. Not specifics, not names, not whatever, because you can't compromise cases, but tell them to reassure America that they were on the right path and to remind America that these folks were going to try to run for re-election and they were domestic terrorists. But no, that was too much for America, and it was too much for many Democrats. It should have just been the domestic terrorist Republicans, MAGA domestic terrorists, that kind of thing. And they ought to be treated like any other terrorist uprising. Look at me agreeing with Scott Jennings here. Again, it makes me want to hurl. With the full force and fury of the U.S. government. Trump's video calling out these terrorists, which he released on Twitter, was a complete failure of leadership, a half-hearted and wholly inadequate attempt to stop these individuals. How can you do that? How can you write that and then have these people enable him? Right? How can you do that? How can you write that and then later on go on CNN and be like, never wrote it? Like the old Jedi mind trick. Did you write it? Never wrote it. And you just end up going and lying constantly for Trump, claiming Trump, is this terrific president, claiming that Kamala Harris solves all these problems. And essentially that's what he did on this show when he said, we'll bring it all back to the beginning. Okay, one second. So this is coming from Ruginski. Ruginski, is this Julie Ruginski? To your point, Scott, I would say I don't think India, with its over 1 billion people, is an insignificant country. He was referring to other countries as insignificant. We're the only one that matters because we're so great. For trading purposes, I don't think the UK, and especially the EU, which it's no longer a part of, isn't a significant trading country. Their economy is. Then Jennings interrupts her because he's a dick. I mean, isn't he like, you guys ever seen the movie PCU? And they had the little white boy fraternity. The Saturday Night Live guy was in there. What was his name? It was hilarious. And they're all like these little Reaganites, and they're like these little wimpy, skinny, white, goofy, overdressed losers. I mean, he would fit right in. And so, and to your point, Scott, I would say, I don't think India, with its over 1 billion people, is insignificant. Okay, I already read that. Jennings, do you think they're more significant than the United States? Oh my God, could you dare say that? I would say they may be because of you, Scott, you asshole. I don't think they're more significant, but I think, and then Jennings jumps in to cut her off again, we're the most significant country. We're the world's superpower. No, we're not anymore, you schmuck. That's the thing. because of what you did under Mitch McConnell, because of what you did under George W. Bush, because how you protected Donald Trump and helped him get reelected. And now we're sitting here and we have a Russian asset in the office that purposely is helping Russia, is undermining Ukraine, is undermining our Western allies and our NATO alliance, is killing us with tariffs, is killing the stock market and people's 401ks are crashing, is farms and ranches are going out of business because you've deported their workers, you're scared them they'll be deported. What part of that is America is the greatest? We're fucking falling apart. And it's because of you little bitch. Roginski, no, stop with the jingoism, Scott. Yeah, that's about right. We're the world's superpower. Let me stop with the jingoism. Dealing with us is the most important thing anybody can do. No, it isn't, because we've proven ourselves unreliable partners, because you help protect a person who is mentally unstable, completely unpredictable, rules in foreign policy and the economy in a whimsical, stupid, irrational fashion, which means other people, investors, other countries can't rely on us, can't predict what we're going to do. And when you can't predict what somebody else is going to do, you're not going to be that close to them because they may not be there for you, which we've proven we won't be. If we did what Trump says, he doesn't want to be there for Ukraine, be happy to just leave him to die. So the reason why I had to talk about all this, it reminded me of that speech from the newsroom and whatever, because I'm so tired of Republicans waving flags, talking about what a great country we are. And the irony of this asshole doing it, who honestly is one of the key reasons, he's like, you see Forrest Gump at every sort of important thing that happens in history. He's like the Forrest Gump of conservative dumb fuckery. He has been there for their violations of ethics, norms, the law, attacks on the judiciary, attacks on the media, attacks on Senate comedy with filibusters turning what used to be something that wasn't used often at all into you now must have 60 votes for everything, so you can't get everything done, and that will help us win back power when we say that you didn't do anything, and you didn't do anything because we blocked it. When you purge U.S. attorneys, when you lie for Donald Trump after you called him out on January 6th, and I'm sure 10 billion other things I'm missing. Oh, yeah, he also has a corporate PR firm in Louisville that apparently is one of the biggest ones in Kentucky. Can somebody explain to me how a guy can be in on a corporate PR firm and be one of the top guys there, so he knows what his clients need, but also still going on CNN? Like, does anybody think he's not using that platform on CNN to slip in little points and whatever that benefit his clients? We used to call that a conflict of interest when the media had anything approaching integrity. And so that is why I knew some people might end up saying to me, "Oh, Cliff, you're just going for clickbait." When you say have that the what do you call it, thumbnail, and it says "I destroyed America" or whatever I put in there. I actually thought about it later, and I wanted to say I fucked up America. That probably would have been a better one, but whatever. I put in "I destroyed America." He did. He honestly is one of the non-elected officials, though I think he now wants to become one, most responsible for the destruction of our democratic norms, our democratic institutions, the rule of law, and everything over the last 20 years. The gall to open your mouth and say America is great. I mean, I hate to go back to Ike again. My God. Like, Ike is just becoming a hero of this show. But he once said, when they asked him about military parades, he was like, "That's what the Soviets do because they're weak. We don't need to do that." Donald Trump does, because he is weak. So he's about to have that big, stupid parade where he spends our taxpayer money. Remember, they want to cut the spending and all of that like they claim they do. They're just willing to spend millions of dollars on a self-congratulatory birthday party for a job of the rut. How does that help the country? We celebrate our country's birthday. Okay, our Declaration of Independence. We celebrate our Constitution in this country. We celebrate the Civil Rights Act. We celebrate the 19th Amendment. There are things we celebrate. We do not celebrate one president's birthday. Yeah, there are some people in the past where we do, right? We have President's Day weekend, and we certainly have Martin Luther King Day. People that have, in the past, in history, have done things that merit that. But a current president, particularly one that looks like a Jabberwocky and is the stupidest person alive, and I mean, whatever, I can go off on, as I say, some combination of the 7 deadly sins and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's not a person whose birthday we celebrate, and you never celebrate a president. I don't care who it is, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, whatever you want. You don't celebrate their birthday when they're in office. That's what you do with dictators, particularly when there's tanks there. That's who Scott Jennings helped put in office, keep in office, and he's still doing it as a propagandist. I mean, he's not an analyst. He doesn't offer any objective opinion. And that's probably because a bunch of his PR clients, he's getting paid on CNN, but a bunch of his PR clients, I'm sure they're right-wing groups too. And they have an interest in Trump winning and Democrats losing. Like, he's just one big conflict of interest, one big liar, one big scumbag. And CNN allows him on there, which is why they suck, which is why I tell you again and again, please support those of us who do independent media. Okay? As you know, I have a YouTube channel. We're approaching 120,000 subscribers. It'd be wonderful if you went to youtube.com @CliffsEdge or @Cliffs_edge. I'm sure Jim Williams can find it and put it in there. That's free. You just go and subscribe. It's awesome. If you want to help me further, well, another thing you could do for free is you could just go and subscribe to blueamp.co. We are a independent media company. We have 580 or so thousand followers, which means we had this viral moment where we grew huge on Substack, and we are trying to use it now to boost other independent voices, other independent media. We're not those folks out there, and I don't need to say names. You guys know who some of them are. We just sit there and say, we're for independent media, we're for independent media. And all they ever do is do a big circle jerk of all of their friends who've got lots of followers too, and just try to raise their the number of subscribers, even if they're already at some absurd number, instead of helping other people. Now, that's not what I'm trying to do. I want to keep raising my YouTube and my Substack numbers, even at 580,000, great. But I'm going to use that for something. And I decided, I think we're going to use that to help push other independent media and get people to pay attention to them, because it's ridiculous that we need to create an ecosystem, because corporate media, CNN, Scott Jennings suck. You want to get the truth, you want to get news out there, and I'll just add it. I know some people are listening here on Substack. Look, that's what lets me do this. So, I mean, I've got, $1.50 a week. And we're adding a number of paid features. There's certain basic stuff like newsletters where you'll get the news and stuff like that. That will always be free because I want to update you guys on stories I think are important and whatever. But we're adding some behind the scenes stuff, videos. We're adding, we're going to add a second week of what we're doing, our second one of what we're doing today, which will be David Schuster creates a really cool video about the week. I write a column about the week. New York Times PitchBot writes some funny pitches. And we've got other folks we're talking to about adding more content. There are going to be 2 of those soon. And other things like that. $1.50 a week. Do you spend that on like the New York Times or the Washington Post and help Jeff Bezos when you could spend that on me or somebody else on Substack, one of the many other folks on there? I'm telling you, spend it on them or me. I'll be happy to take it. Because again, if this venture works, 1,000 flowers will bloom. We're going to do our best to support other progressive voices. That is a mission for me now. Because I've had enough of Scott Jennings and people like him on CNN. We don't even need to get into Fox. Outside of Jessica Tarloff, as far as I'm concerned, but that whole place could just fucking disappear into a black hole. MSNBC, some good folks, some not as good folks. Little story I told you I'm telling in the Substack I'm running today, again, that's on this topic is, it's worse under Trump, but they've been doing this stuff where they've been trying to assault education, healthcare, these programs to cut spending because we want to balance the budget, which is, no, they want to put money in their pockets and their friends, the lobbyists' pockets who support them, and the defense industry, which is part of that, and pharma and whatever. Okay. But I have a story in there because Newt Gingrich was the first one to come up with, let's cut the Department of Education. For those of you who think this is something new, this has been something floating around the right for 30 years. 4,400 employees. And if you did it the way Elon Musk has done it so far, they'd get a Friday 4:30 p.m. email telling them not to come in on Monday. They're fired. And oh, by the way, you've lost your health care too. So remember that. Wow, this show has all been one big rant for me, which is kind of cool. Well, we may have to cut some of this up into some clips. We'll see. But, in any case, I want to tell you because I don't care. I to show you that I don't care. I don't need access, and I don't try to get it. So I just tell the truth. There was a young congressman standing at Newt Gingrich's side, very much advocating with him um, that that he um, that he support destroying the Department of Education. Does anybody want to guess who it is? How about this? I'll get you to try out my paid Substack. You guess this, you get this right, I will give you 1 month for free of paid Substack. So you will have a month for free, and then you'll get to see what it is we do, and you can decide after that if you want to stick with us. But I will give you a month for free. Who was the young congressman standing next to Newt Gingrich, trying to make a name for, I'll even give you a hint, for himself? Not that it was the Republican Party, so it wasn't likely going to be herself. Fully advocating that we eliminate the Department of Education. Joe McCarthy. Good guess, Michael McAndrews. He probably came back. Paul Sharkey Mannion says, adios, Cliff. See you later. My friend, thank you for being here. How about this? Because I have to go soon. Guys, there is an Arsenal game today to beat Paris Saint-Germain, as I told you. It starts at 3. If I'm a few minutes late, it's okay, but I do have to see it. Can I stack that stack in my garage? You can get a Substack, and it will stack in your garage digitally. Again, $1.50 a week is what you would be giving me. And I bet a lot of you right now give more money to mainstream media or corporate media outlets that lie to you than $1.50 a week. So just keep that in mind. There you go. Cynthia Rice is the big winner. It was a young lad named Joe Scarborough. Yes, Joe Scarborough was advocating to eliminate the Department of Education. I'll have that in my piece today. Oh, wow. What a shocker that he turned out to be who he is. Cynthia, you have to let me know if you are a subscriber anywhere, paid subscriber, or if I have your email, or I need to get in touch with you somehow. But you will, if you are not Beth got in there a little bit late, but let's see. How much did you get in there after her, Beth? So that I can take a look and see if, how Scarborough, you were like actually the same minute. And you tried to write Joe as Cynthia. So I'll give you both. So question is, Beth Stramera Profic, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Cynthia. How do you have emails you can share? First of all, are you guys Patreon members, free or paid? Are you Substack members, free or paid? Because if you're either of those things, then I will have your email. If you're not, then you scared me for a second. Who said Arsenal's goal down and playing in Paris? Yes, they are, but that's from the last game, and it's aggregate, as you know. So they can do it. I have faith. In any case, I am old and have a long memory, Cynthia. Yeah, I do too. And that's why when Joe Scarborough started looking up acting and saying some of that shit on MSNBC and kissing Trump's butt, that's what often helps me in politics, is I have a long memory and I knew where to look because I remembered. I'm like, I think Scarborough was backing that back then. And of course he was. So I need both of you guys. Are you still here? Do we have you? If you can both give me a way to get in touch with you, where's my Patreon? In fact, if you're not Patreon members, even if you both joined for free, I would have your email then. And then I could email you what you need so that you could be you could end up getting a free month. I want to give it to you. You just got to let me know how I can do that. You're welcome, Beth. But you do need to let me know how. Here, this is a email that I don't really use for anything. I mean, I do some little business stuff. But if you guys both want to send me an email there, you can do that. I know Cynthia's a mod and is awesome, but I don't know if she's a member of anything. And she is awesome, yes. So I'm not sure, you know, to be a mod, you don't have to join one of the various places that you join. So you both either send me something or let me know where to send you something. And again, you're dealing with an ADHD personality. It tries to keep it all together. Um, so, do what you can. Oh, Carl, good. I'm glad you enjoyed see, Carl can show you here. I'm trying my best, guys. And that's one of the reasons I started doing one fewer of these and other stuff, because I was finding like I wasn't having time to answer. I'm still behind on a whole bunch of comments and emails sent to me about like the last 2 to 3 weeks of Substacks that I want to catch up on. So I'm working on an internal process right now to have somebody else put together some of the newsletters on Monday and Friday for Substack, maybe help me even set this show up. I'm going to see what I can have some folks. Cynthia has been a Patreon member from Jump. Well, there we go, Cynthia. We're all set. And I'm sorry that I didn't know that, but there's lots of lists floating around of some are Patreon, some are YouTube members, some are Substack. Is why I was sort of done my best to consolidate all that, but I get people want to be where they want to be. And so I forget who's a member of where. And, if you were a YouTube member, for example, they don't give us your email. So I'd know you're there, but I wouldn't have a way of emailing you. I do now so that we can write down. You're a Substack, that you're a Patreon member, and where has Beth gone? Where are you, Beth? There you are. A little higher up here from a few minutes ago. Beth, if you're still here, either send me an email or let me know somewhere where I can reach you if you are not a Patreon or a Substack member. Again, you can be a free member and I'll still have your email and can send you something. If you're not, I can't. So you got to send me something. And then I'll give you a free month of paid service at Substack because you got that. And hopefully you'll like it. I think you'll find it's worth it. I think that may be it for today. I've done my ranting. I've done my ranting, raving. Oh, and I saw that my friend Mr. McAndrews is in here today. No. Why are you sorry, Starling? You just figured I'd know who she was? Yeah, I mean, I know who she is because Cynthia's in here talking all the time and doing stuff. I just can't remember who's on what lists and stuff. I know who shows up here because I see you guys again and again and again, but I don't sit there staring at the Patreon list constantly or the Substack list constantly. That would be a little weird and obsessive. So, it's different. Thank you, MJ. I'm going to try to rant more because it is healthy for the soul. Also, I can grab some of this, throw some video behind it. I think we can create some good videos. So good for everybody. But I know I saw Michael McAndrews in there. You're another person. Almost scored the first goal. Who? Arsenal? See, I better get to this game and see what's going on. And I apologize, guys. Like, I want to be here and everything, but this is one of the biggest games my team has played in a while. It is the biggest game they played in a while. Michael, so for you, Michael McAndrews, you've been so generous, obviously here, and you are a member, I believe, at Substack, or I'm sorry, at Patreon. I'm not sure it's Substack, but I also I talked to Devin and Lefty Gramps at the beginning of the show and saying for you two also, I put that email in there. Please reach out to me because you guys have been so supportive constantly. Like whenever you're here, you're giving me a super chat or a super sticker, or you've joined various things. And to me, that's just, I can't, the only way I can let you know how much that means to me, that you support me in that. Oh, you joined Substack. Okay. Well, I can find you there then. I don't know if you're paid or free. Either way, I've got maybe that'll be it. Maybe I'll give you guys a paid one also for a month or two. If you're not already paid, and if you are, I'll give you something else. But you guys have been so supportive that just is something that I have to reward, because again, some of what you guys have done is some of the reason that I can do this. So Martinelli should have put that away. Ugh, Martinelli is awesome, but come on, guys. 2 goals, 2-0. We put this thing away. We go to the finals of Inter. And I don't want to talk like the rest of it about soccer because I bet you guys are not as big soccer fans. A few of you are. So I think we'll move on from here. And the last thing I'll do is I need that one super chat or super sticker. That's it to walk out the door with. It could be 99 cents, almost nothing. It's the good feeling of walking away and being supported. So who's coming with me? Come on, guys. Who's coming with me? I'm on the way to watch a great footy match. Who's coming with me? While we're doing that, we'll look at the 2 start. Hey, we have Tude Ogfaken. If I mispronounced that, I am very sorry. That is an awesome name. Sounds kind of Scandinavian to me. Thank you, Tude, for becoming a new member. Sheldon Hughes gifted a membership because he does that. He's awesome. And then, of course, I've got 2 of my heavy hitters here. And that's why I want you guys to send me emails and let me know where to reach you, or I will find you. Sheldon Hughes gives me a $2 super chat, and Michael McAndrews with a $10 one. And as always, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Oh, and JD Christie also has often jumped in. JD will have to, same with you. You should send me something. Because I really appreciate it. 99-cent super sticker, and MJ gifted 1 Cliff's Edge membership. Thank you, MJ. We'll come up with tiers. I promise some of the other guys that give sometimes I'll find something to do for too. There's some that are here every time, or at least every time they're here, they're supporting me. And I can't tell you how important that is, how much I appreciate it. Okay. Most underrated, great Arsenal player, Justin Timber. Yes, in terms of underrated, I would agree. They have just some serious gamers right now, so I'm hoping. Somebody else said, I'm a Premier League fan in general. I know, that's why you have to root for Arsenal. It'd be so cool for the Premier League to win the Champions League again. Okay, I've done too much soccer talking, although we'll do more. Another one if you guys are interested. I see a bunch of you are. I just want to make sure that, I've told you I'm going to mix rock and roll and my love for soccer and baseball into this, and humor and other things. We had someone booked for today who's actually was a bit of a rock star. I had a rock band for a while that was pretty big. Not on the level of like these ones that sold gazillions of albums, but he's awesome. And now he reps a bunch of independent bands. But sadly, his kitty passed away, or they had to put his kitty down, and it's horrible. And we have 4 of them. They are members of the family. So all I could do was, I feel like, of course, you're not coming on today, but we will do it. Okay, Sheldon's telling me I'm missing a good game, so that's it. I got to go watch it. Listen, guys, you're awesome. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. And as I always say, as the sun sets slowly in the west, I bid you a fond farewell. Oh, be there tomorrow, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Substack. And now I bid you a fond farewell.